Dylan Raiola in Nebraska just wrapped up their best practice of fall camp so far, and it wasn't even close. And we just got our hands on exclusive media footage of Dylan Raiola throwing around that football, all of the improvements he's made so far, whether or not he could actually be a top 10 quarterback this year. But yet, there are still some massive concerns with his game, things that Dana Holgorsen is aggressively trying to change before the season. And then I'm going to give you a huge update around Nebraska's wide receiver core. Is Dane still injured? I'll give you the latest, whether or not he's practicing. Jacory Barney has took his game to a different level. I have some big clips I want to show you, a couple breakout wide receivers, a hidden gem on this defense who you need to buy stock on right now because he could potentially start week 1 for the Huskers out of nowhere, and everything else you need to know. So really quick, this is a loaded camp intel episode. Hit that like button if you're fired up. And also, the season's almost here. If you're a diehard Nebraska fan and you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? For daily content talking Huskers, it's a no-brainer. It takes 2 seconds. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, we have a lot to talk about. I want to get things started with the most important player on Nebraska's roster. According to the coaches yesterday, players who talked to the media, a couple people who were at this practice, Dylan Raiola just wrapped up his best practice of fall camp, and it wasn't even close. Potentially his best practice as a Nebraska football player, period. He was absolutely phenomenal, and I want to get things started. The media team, they posted a bunch of clips yesterday of him slinging around that rock. I want to show you the first clip. We'll get to all of them, and then talking about all of his improvements that he's made so far. So this was something that was posted by the media team last night. Right off the bat, you see him rolling off to the right-hand side, side-arming that football over to Luke Lindenmeyer right on the money. And that exemplifies Dylan Raiola's greatest strength so far in fall camp. The biggest thing that he's been working on has been getting outside the pocket and making plays with his legs. Not necessarily to run for 5, 10, 15 yards. You're still going to see that a lot more this year. But the main thing that Dylan Raiola has been working on is slimming down, and then feeling more confident, getting out to the pocket and making a play with his arm. Because that was the best part of his game in high school that we did not see at all as a true freshman. Time and time again at Buford, as a senior in high school, he would get outside the pocket, he'd make a play off script, and he'd find a wide open receiver 30, 40 yards down the field. That was when Dylan Raiola was at his best. When the play broke down, he had to make some out of nothing. Just like Patrick Mahomes, just like some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, whether it's Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jayden Daniels. Okay, that's what the best quarterbacks do. Okay, when the game gets tight and you need to make some off script, they know what to do. And Dylan Raiola last year, he didn't know what to do. That's the reason why he wasn't a top 20, top 30 quarterback in America. So that's been the big focal point. It's been, when the play breaks down, use your legs. Not necessarily to go pick up 5, 10 yards with your legs, but use your legs, keep your eyes downfield, and then find somebody by the sideline. So that's something that Dylan Raiola has taken to a different level so far in fall camp. Again, he looks just so much better from a weight standpoint. I'd imagine he's around 225 right now, which is the perfect weight for him. So again, he looks great, but imagine him, against that Cincinnati game, pressure gets inside the pocket. He's not going to panic. He's not going to throw it away, but he's actually going to roll out left or right and, find Jacory Barney right around the sideline. That's a game-changing ability that we just didn't have last year that's going to take this offense to a different level. So that's the biggest thing right now that Dylan Raiola has been proving on, but there's so much more. The deep ball he has took to a different level as well. When the media saw the team on the first day of fall camp, when all the fans saw the team on Saturday, Dylan Raiola did not miss a single deep ball. It's all on the money. And that was something that was a huge concern last year, where there were multiple times in clutch situations he missed wide open deep balls against Illinois, against Iowa, against Ohio State. If Dylan Raiola completed that one pass in all 3 of those games, we probably could have won 3 more. We probably would have ended the year with 9 wins. But I hate looking back on the past, but Dylan Raiola has said time and time again, along with Dana Holgorsen, that that's a big focal point. Okay, how can we complete those deep balls that are wide open? How can we get those guys inside the numbers? So for that reason, his deep ball has been so much more improved, man. And that's something that, we saw back in high school as well. So the deep ball is so much better. The ability to get outside the pocket, make some out of nothing's better. And honestly, probably the best part about his game so far has been the progressions. And that's what we saw yesterday in practice, being a smart quarterback. Because I think a lot of this talk around arm strength, even accuracy at times, can be overrated. Slimming down, it's overrated. What makes you an elite quarterback, what makes you a Tom Brady, Joe Montana, you just go down the list, is your intangibles, your IQ, your ability to go 1, 2, 3, wide open wide receiver, or to read the defense before the play's even snapped. And Dylan Raiola, say what you want, just wasn't good at that last year. And that's expected. He was a true freshman, right? We're not giving him too much slack, but he has took his IQ to a different level. He's been working hard, not in practice, but in the film room, learning defenses. So the progressions are so much better. And you can just see in these clips, he's going 1, 2, 3, 4, dumps it off, right? He doesn't always, some of these quarterbacks in the Big Ten, they're only relying on the first, second progression, and then they bail, right? Dylan's not doing that. He's going through all of them. So that's something that's very much improved. And then the sidearm. I mean, you just saw that in that clip. The sidearm is looking really good. We might see that a couple times this year. Maybe against Cincinnati, that sidearm pass just like Patrick Mahomes. So that is something that is very interesting. Now, with that being said, he's not a perfect quarterback just yet. There are some still concerns. There are still things that we need to look out for, especially in Cincinnati, especially when we get to that Michigan game that, he's still struggling at. He's not a finished product. I think, honestly, the big thing that I'm looking out for is him under pressure. That was when he was at his worst last year. When the pocket broke down and there was an edge rusher get into him, or there was a big nose tackle in his face, he panicked, right? He threw that ball away, or he would take an unnecessary sack, or worse, that's when you saw most of Dylan Raio's interceptions. And that's something that you really can't simulate too much in practice unless you scrimmage. And of course, quarterbacks don't get touched in scrimmage anyways, but that's the big thing for Dylan Raiola. Like if he can actually be a top 10 quarterback, it means that he has got to get better when pressure's in his face. And we just won't get answers to that until Cincinnati. So that's something that's still definitely a big concern around him. So talking about Dylan Raiola though, he just wrapped up his best practice. It wasn't even close. I mean, he just threw some ropes. And Addison Williams talked about it. He said, when you're a DB coach, it can get frustrating sometimes because Dylan Raiola, he's going to make that perfect throw every single time that you really just can't defend. So he was absolutely phenomenal. I know a lot of Nebraska fans are going to gravitate towards that. Now, let's talk about the wide receiver, specifically Dane. I want to get it started with him. Now, of course, we know that he was injured on Saturday. He did not practice in that open practice when the fans went to it. So there were a lot of concerns. Oh, is he going to be out for that season opener? Could he miss some extended time? I'm happy to report that Dane Key is back and thriving in practice. Not only did Dylan Raiola have his best practice as a Nebraska player, Dane Key did too. Look at these clips. Look at these photos. OBJ style. I don't know if he actually caught this football. I guess he probably did. He might have. But you look at him, the extension, the ability to go up and get those jump balls is unlike some we've seen in Nebraska in a very long time. He had another big contested catch that they posted a video of, they posted a photo of. So Dane Key's back. He's not restricted in any way. And clearly, man, he is dominating in practice. So that's good there. Again, there probably are still some concerns of him getting banged up. He had a little bit of an issue in spring ball as well. Hopefully this doesn't linger. Hopefully he plays in all 12 games, but definitely something I'm still going to keep my eyes out for because, again, we've seen this twice now in a Nebraska uniform. The biggest trait you can have at the wide receiver position is staying available. And Dane Key right now, while he is healthy, hopefully it stays that way. And then talking about another wide receiver, we got some clips. Jacory Barney has took his game to a different level. First off, beautiful throw by Dylan Raiola. Beautiful. That's right on the money. That's a back shoulder fade ball. I can't throw it any better. But that's the big thing that Jacory's been working on so far in practice. Last year, he was primarily just a slot receiver, right? They get him on jet sweeps. They get him on these little dink and duck screens, slants. This year, especially in practice, they're working on Jacory Barney being a deep ball threat, something we didn't see. We saw basically one time, that big play against UCLA where he caught about 40 yards on the field. That was the only big play that Jacory Barney had all year that was actually down the field through the air. Okay, that's what they're changing for Jacory Barney. He's going to be more of a red zone threat as well. So perfect ball by Dylan, but perfect catch by Jacory. And that's not even the only one. Look at this one. Another contested catch. And that was one-handed. That was one-handed too. That was for a touchdown over Malcolm Hartzog. So Jacory Barnes at a different level. There's a reason why I've told you guys I believe he's the best wide receiver on this roster. I told you guys this. I think Jacory Barnes is the best player on this roster. And I got some slack for that. I understand it. But that's how high I am on Jacory Barnes. I think he's a stud, man. And you're seeing that in practice as well. And then talking about a couple other players, Keelan Smith is somebody who quietly has had one of the strongest fall camps of anybody on this entire offense. And the media isn't really talking about it. I haven't really talked about it until now. Like, there is a real reality where Keelan Smith is not only in this too deep for Nebraska in the receiver core, there's a real reality where he could start as the year progresses. God forbid some injuries hit this room, but he's going to get some significant playing time. He's 6'3", 210 pounds, one of the more productive players coming out of high school. I believe he was a Gatorade Player of the Year coming out of Missouri. So, he's a stud. He was a state champion too. Guy can go up and get jump balls. So just buy some Keelan Smith stock because he's going to be able to play a lot more than a lot of people are expecting. I would compare him. I think I would call him basically a more athletic Chris Hickman if I were to use a comparison. If you guys remember Chris Hickman, like, he's just more athletic, a little more speedy, a little more versatile. But man, that jump ball ability is great for when it comes to a Keelan Smith. He's not fast. Like, he's not a guy who, knocks your socks off with his speed. That's not what you can expect from him. But again, he's physical, he's tall, get jump balls, and that's what we need at the receiver position. But Keelan Smith, buy some stock. And then last but not least, somebody I want to highlight before we get out of here, who could very well start for Nebraska against Cincinnati, week 1. This is Mario Buford. When I tell you that this kid has had a phenomenal fall practice, I might be underselling it. He's been great. He's been all over the field. Mario Buford's going to be great for Nebraska. He could potentially start at nickel. Now they're playing him at safety and at nickel. He's not necessarily a boundary corner, so they're cross-training him at all positions. But just know that Malcolm Hartzog spot in the slot, it's not a done deal. Okay, Malcolm Hartzog, it's going to be a battle up until game day. And yeah, probably Malcolm Hartzog's going to start there at nickel, but Mario Buford's going to give him a run for his money. That's how well he's played so far with his athletic upside. People forget he was a former big-time recruit coming out of DeSoto, so my man, Mario Buford, just buy stock. And even if he doesn't start game one, it doesn't matter because he's going to play a lot. They're going to rotate a lot in the secondary, and I could very well see we get to the back half of the year and Mario Buford solidifies one of the best players in the secondary. Could very well see that. Kind of the same way that Sear Wright broke on the scene last season, right? I feel the same way about Mario. He's had a really strong fall camp, and he's been balling out recently. So just wanted to highlight him because he needs some respect. And this entire secondary, like Donovan Jones has played really well the last couple of days. You know, Jameer Khan had a slow start, but he's been coming along according to Addison Williams the other day. You know, Larry Tarver, somebody who I continue to hype up. I believe in Larry Tarver a lot. He's been playing well. I think he's going to get a lot of snaps this year. So I think the secondary is going to be a lot better than what people are expecting. And again, iron sharpens iron. With how good this receiver core is, you better believe that's making the DBs better. So it gets me fired up, but I'm really excited to see both this year, especially against Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts down below about everything. Hey, if you made this far in the video, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe. As always, folks, go Big Red, go Matt Rule, and I'll see you in the next one.